Almost no coaster has had more of an impact on its park's front gate than GateKeeper. Guarding the entrance to Cedar Point since 2013, this B&M wing coaster is an absolute spectacle, towering over the park's main entrance as it flies in and around the ride's signature keyholes. But is the ride as good as it looks? In this review, I'll be answering this question and letting you know exactly what to expect when you go out to ride it. Welcome to CLT Coasters. My name is Josh, and this is my complete review of GateKeeper. Even though it hugs the front entrance to Cedar Point, GateKeeper Station is actually located in the southeast corner of the park at the bottom of the new for 2023 boardwalk section. It's located right up against the beach, and its vibrant blue paint scheme looks incredible next to the sand as well as the waters of Lake Erie. While there's pretty much no theming in the plaza or on ride, GateKeeper still looks phenomenal, and has a really nice entrance sign complete with two griffins sitting back to back. The whole ride has a regal, majestic feel to it, and it's no wonder that it draws in so many guests each day. But despite being so popular, GateKeeper still manages to be a people eater. Its theoretical capacity is over 1,700 riders per hour. While there's no way the ride crew reaches that number every 60 minutes, they still manage to crank out fully loaded trains very fast. On both of my days at Cedar Point, dispatch times consistently fell between 45 and 60 seconds, which is not only fast in general, but fits right in with the amazingly fast operations up in Sandusky. Well, except for Millennium Force. Once you enter the queue, you'll be greeted with switchbacks. Lots and lots of switchbacks. There's no theming in the queue or on the ride, but GateKeeper honestly doesn't need it. Its beautiful color scheme and huge swooping inversions are enough to make this one of the most visually pleasing coasters in the world. Unfortunately, one thing the queue could use and doesn't have is shade. If the line is extending into the main part of the queue, you'll probably be directly in the sun, so make sure to pack your sunscreen. On the bright side, the lack of shade allows for some amazing views of GateKeeper's first few elements. You'll eventually make it undercover, and before ascending into the station, you'll have the choice to ride on the left or right wing of the train. Most people tend to get in whichever line is shorter, but if you want the best ride experience, I would say to choose the left wing for reasons I'll get into in a minute. No matter which side you choose, the station is just a flight of stairs away, and when you get up there, you'll have the option to sit in one of 8 rows. I'm sure the front has amazing views, but on each of my 2 rides, I sat in the back, and I'm guessing that's where the forces are at their strongest, so just pick whatever sounds more appealing to you. On the topic of trains, each of GateKeeper's 3 trains are themed to golden griffins, and they look incredible. The shiny metallic colors really pop against the blue track. Riders are secure with B&M's oh-so-divisive vest restraints, and on wing coasters I actually don't mind these restraints at all. Sure, they can get kinda tight by the end of the ride, but they don't really take away from the ride experience for me. Not to mention they make a lot of sense for the ride model, unlike another B&M across the park. Once you're dispatched, the train takes a right-hand turn out of the station and climbs up a 170-foot lift hill. Like most new B&Ms, this lift hill is really fast, and you'll be at the top in no time. Then the action starts with a bang as you rotate straight off the lift into the ride's first inversion, a dive drop, which debuted as the world's tallest inversion back in 2013. And this is the main reason why I prefer the left wing to the right. The inversion rotates clockwise, so those on the left will roll the highest before diving 164 feet toward the ground. Everyone on the train will still get some nice hang time that transitions into a little bit of floater airtime, but the forces are a bit stronger on the left because of the higher rotation. It's a really cool first drop that's a great way to start the ride, even if I do prefer straight drops like the one on Wild Eagle at Dollywood. You hit the ride's top speed of 67 miles per hour before soaring through the ride's second inversion, a giant Immelman that has some nice float. This is followed by an enormous camelback hill, which doesn't really have that much airtime. You get a tiny bit of floater, but don't expect it to feel like a camelback on a B&M Hyper. Another floaty inversion comes next as riders traverse a giant corkscrew that rotates counterclockwise. This lines you up perfectly for the most iconic part of the ride, a long zero-G roll that twists its way through 2 mesmerizing keyholes. You actually can't notice the near miss with the keyholes much on ride, but it sure makes for a wild front entry experience, and the inversion itself is pretty nice too. GateKeeper turns itself around by flipping riders upside down for a 5th time. This inversion is one of just 3 incline dive loops in the world, and it produces a bit of positive G's and some mild whip in the back of the train. This is immediately followed by a super drawn out inline twist located behind the keyholes. Everyone in the train gets some solid hang time as they go upside down, and it finishes out the ride's 6 inversions. By this point the ride is pretty much over, but there's still a little bit of the 4,164 feet of track to go. You'll pop up into the mid-course brakes before dipping down into a helix, which doesn't really do much except throw in some variety, and then head over an airtimeless bunny hill before sliding into the final brakes. While the ending isn't too great, most of GateKeeper is actually really solid, and the ride is carried by its 6 striking inversions. Like most B&Ms, GateKeeper is really smooth all things considered. Some of the most intense valleys have a tiny bit of a rattle, and the outer seats can get a little bouncy, but at this point I'm just nitpicking. One last thing about the ride experience. As with pretty much every coaster at Cedar Point, you've gotta watch out for the bugs, especially in the front row. All sorts of insects, including mayflies, love to swarm around the park because of its location on Lake Erie, so keep that in mind if you choose to sit in row 1. I'll finish things out by touching on GateKeeper's designated gift shop. This is where you'll be able to see your ride photos, and there's some really nice merch for the ride as well as other rides around Cedar Point. This park has some of the best merch in the world, so don't pass it up if that's your thing. The coolest part about this gift shop, though, is a little piece of Cedar Point's past that still remains to this day. Disaster Transport was an indoor bobsled coaster from Intamin that closed in 2012, and it was replaced by GateKeeper the following year. The former ride's theming included an orange robot named Dave that the park's fan base loved. When Disaster Transport closed, the park decided to save Dave and give him a permanent place in GateKeeper's gift shop, where he continues to function and talk to guests. It's a super fun way to honor a former attraction, and I love that Cedar Point cares so much about its history. So what's my final verdict on GateKeeper? I think this is a really fun, smooth, and re-rideable ride that's a great fit at Cedar Point. It may not pack the punch of some of the park's other coasters, but it has some pretty decent intensity, and its huge inversions are some of the best in the state of Ohio. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give GateKeeper an 8. This is currently my favorite wing coaster, narrowly beating out Wild Eagle at Dollywood. I wouldn't call it one of the best coasters at Cedar Point, but it's still a ride that I try to get on every time I go, because it's a lot of fun. Even if I happen to miss it, at least it looks incredible from the ground. So those are my complete thoughts on GateKeeper, Cedar Point's majestic B&M wing coaster. If you've ridden this ride before, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. I'd appreciate if you would leave a like if you enjoyed this review, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, be sure to check out CLT Coasters on Instagram. The link's down in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care, everybody.